I did anything and everything I had to make sure I could survive.
I have the pleasure of welcoming Ash to my channel.
Go to the UK, just do it, just pick up and go. I was like, okay, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna try something with my life. I had no idea where it's gonna land. Working as the stripper, I was still promised the world. I was told all this stuff was gonna happen, gonna make so much money. I think I did like 3 shows. I made about 300 quid the whole time.
Let me ask you, in a few words, what does social media mean to you now?
I was just dumped with this page which had 125,000 followers and no traction, no nothing. And I was like, what the hell do I do with this? Like now, as an online coach, I don't care. Like I look at my posts now, they're getting 100-200 likes, but my client base is through the roof. There's also so much negativity on there. There's always so many things where you'll compare yourself to what's going on, and comparison is probably one of the worst things in the world. I lost so many moments of being present, and a lot of those, you'll never get those moments back. You can't recreate that moment because I'll never have the same experience. So you've got to be present in that moment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So before we begin today's podcast, I'd like to say a big thank you to Casita Properties, the UK leading property company when it comes to off-market, discreet buy-to-let sales. God, I'm getting good at saying that. I have the pleasure of welcoming Ash to my channel. Mate, pleasure to have you here. Thank
you so much, mate. This is a dream. This is amazing.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into it. And look, for anyone that's been following the channel for a while, we said it just before we went live. We're gonna try and extract a lot of the realism behind people's stories. Tap into the good, the bad, the ugly. And what I want to do, obviously, let's state the obvious. You're a very muscular guy.
Yoga instructor, man. It's all fake.
CrossFit.
Yeah, that's one.
Let's dive into where Ash started to where you are now to what you do, and just a bit of a backstory, mate.
Right. Well, I'm Australian. I've got this hybrid accent, as you can tell. Look, man, growing up, I went from living in a small country town. One of those places that my parents actually, to make sure we had a living, because I was living in Sydney, and as I was living in Sydney, we're like, we need to make sure we stay together. So we picked up everything, moved to a small country town, and that was basically it. Like that whole place, it was very cliquey. So because we weren't from there, you had a lot of people that as a rugby town, they all kept quite cliquey. My dad wanted to bring a junior rugby into the town, which was a big thing, and people then kind of jumped over the top of him and still kind of segregated us as a family a little bit, as much as we tried to integrate with it. It was all right. It was all right, but it wasn't the place that I wanted to be growing up, and always wanted to get out, always wanted to leave. And my mum and I, after I got through high school, like again, school for me was like daycare. I hated it. Yeah. It was history and PE. That was what I loved, and playing rugby. Again, playing rugby was a big thing in my family, so that was the one thing that kept me quite grounded and connected within the town. And look, I ended up, once I think I turned 17, I was like, I'm going to join the army. Me and my mum were arguing left, right and center, like hated each other. And there's one day, I think we'd had a massive argument in the house, and I was like, can I swear on this, by the way?
Yeah, go for it.
I was like, fuck you, I'm joining the army. Just picked up the keys and walked out the door. And we were about an hour from Canberra. So from that is I drove up to the army recruitment centre, said, I want to join the army. And they were like, oh, you do it online. Here, look at this. So I drove back home, looked at the disc they gave me back when you had a CD-ROM for the computers. I then said, that's the job I'm going to do. Got back in the car, drove back to Canberra, and they're like, no, call this number. You don't have to come back in. So then I drove back home, called the number, and ended up joining the army. It kind of got me away from where I was. Again, in Goulburn, as I said, I was teased a lot as a kid. It just, that whole thing, I didn't fit in. You had those other families which were quite cliquey. Then I went from a public school where everyone was a rugby player, rugby union, to another public school, but all the kids that I was in primary school with, they went to a private school, so they all had rugby union. I was then surrounded by rugby league, and that kind of pushed me out a bit more. So I copped a lot of shit playing rugby union. But anyway, then I joined the army, and I'll tell you what, it was same thing. It was like college. I spent most of the time drunk. It was good. It taught me discipline. It taught me a lot, but it it wasn't fulfilling. I didn't like being told what to do. Really didn't like being told what to do. And it kind of ended up bringing me to over this way eventually. I'd actually met a girl out one night drinking, funny enough. And what she'd done is she basically invited me, said, "You want to get a job in the mines?" So I got a job in the mines over in Western Australia and started working there. Me and her had split up. And one of my mates, I'm shortening all this, by the way. One of my mates was like, "Look, you need life experience. You need to get away. You need to get away from this girl. You need to just live your life and go to the UK." So I was like, "I don't know if I can do that." And he goes, "Dude, just do it. Just go. You need life experience." So after doing a year in the mines, like at 20, I was about 21, 22, I sold everything I had. And I'd earned about $160,000 that year and spent nearly $160,000 because I didn't know how to look at it. After my first paycheck, I got $12,500. And the first night out, I took all my mates. I was like, "We're going out. I'm paying for it. You guys don't worry about it." I paid $300 for a bottle of tequila at a pub because I was that drunk. I didn't care I had that much money and I didn't know what to do with it at all.
And what stage were you at? Was this kind of like that whole sort of boisterous feel, exactly earning a bit of money, you were sort of wanting to prove a little bit of a point?
Exactly that.
Do you know what? You're talking about the mines. When you say you're in the mines, I don't know what that film is. Is it Bug's Life or is it Ants? You remind me of the, who's the muscular guy?
Bug's Life. The soldier. The soldier on Bug's Life.
Yeah, the one who's like smashing away at the pickaxe.
That's one. So
you were going through that typical kind of boisterous,
wanted to prove something.
Yeah, starting to going down that road. We've all been there. Yeah. We all know that feeling. And then why the UK? Why was it about coming over to the UK? What was different?
So the mate that I was with, now he's one of my best friends back home, Blake. He'd been over here. He'd lived in Cornwall for a while and he was like, "You know what? You just need to go and try it out." And I had no direction, no idea what I was doing in life. Like, honestly, I was getting drunk every weekend. Like in the army, we were paid fortnightly. Okay, I'd get my paycheck on a Thursday. I'd spend everything but a couple $100 over the weekend, usually between the pub, nightclubs, and strippers. And it was just because that's what we all did. And then I'd live a week and a half with a couple $100 to my name. Like we even created a thing called Poor Man's Nachos, corn chips, barbecue sauce, and mayonnaise. Put in the microwave. Yeah, that was a solid meal. So it was going from that, not knowing what to do with money, to then going to the mines and being able to have all of that money was, I still didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And that's why when Blake was like, "Go to the UK, just do it, just pick up and go," I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna try something with my life." I had no idea where it's gonna land.
Yeah.
But
how old were you at this point?
21, I think it was 21. 22.
Had you moved on to social media at this point, or was it still back then? Because it wasn't huge, was it?
It wasn't huge. Like I remember my first ever Instagram photo was a can of Jack Daniels with the vintage filter. And it was just me sitting outside one of the campsites just holding a can of Jack Daniels.
I used to use the vintage filter a long time ago.
That one.
On my first account.
That one.
But remember that one.
You look back at your photos of what you had. Like there was a salt mine next to a massive salt mine next to where we used to live. And there was a photo of me with a rolled up note in the distance from a salt mine trying to do that. Like it was just stupid stuff because I had no idea what social media was.
Yeah.
And when I came over here again, I still had no idea. Like I was taking photos on my camera. I've got so many photos of the travels that I did. Like I went on to a 2-year youth mobility scheme, which gave me 2 years in the UK to work and that's it. But after 2 years, you kind of had to shoot.
Yeah.
But I not thinking, not planning, not doing any of that stuff. I traveled for the first 3 months. I went through Europe. I'd actually come into a bit of Bitcoin in the early days and had a bit of money for it. I think I spent 30 grand of it. But I traveled, lived like a king, but actually spent all of my money. And instead of staying in the UK going, "Okay, how am I going to do this?" I freaked out and I went home.
Yeah.
And I went home for a couple of months. And my parents were like, "Look, you're wasting an opportunity here.
Yeah.
Get a job. We'll pay for you. Get back to the UK." So I got a job as a stripper, but I told mum.
Of course you did.
There's that vanity. But I got a job as a stripper, but I told mum and dad I was doing security.
Yeah.
And the day they found out was the message from mum just going, "I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed you haven't told me." And when the mum says I'm disappointed, you're like, shit.
Let me ask you about the traveling because this is something that I talk about. casual conversation, you get a lot of people that leave school and they start traveling.
Yeah.
And my take on it is that it's almost like avoiding reality. And I put it very bluntly. I use this example. What's it going to do, me showing people I've got a photo of me on an elephant?
Yeah.
In the early days, I haven't been traveling. It doesn't appeal to me, but I always think of it as that when you leave school, I just feel that it's time to attack reality, get yourself set up, because the traveling can come later in life.
Yeah.
And I think if you really focus, because I know many people that left school, went traveling, did the Australia, Bali, Thailand, then came back and they're still living with mum and dad and they've got nothing to show for it. And did you go through a realization of, was it worth it? What I'm saying is, was the travel, to anyone watching this, was the travel worth it? How did you feel about it?
Well, yes, it was, because of the experience. Don't get me wrong, I was drunk the entire time. I'm pretty sure before New Year's, my liver had started hurting going into like towards the end of Christmas. I got that drunk on New Year's that I was the last one up. After, I think I did a bottle of vodka, a bottle of Jack Daniel, no, a bottle of tequila, a bottle of champagne, just too much. And then when I went home, I'd stop drinking. For me, yes, it was fun. I got to see all these places. I got to see a lot of war history, because obviously being in the army, I got to visit a lot of the concentration camps, a lot of all that stuff. So I really enjoyed the history side of things. I made sure I got a mixture of both, of party and all that. But again, when I came home, I had no idea. And that realization of, shit, I'm 21, 22. What am I doing with my life? Like originally with the whole Bitcoin thing, I was going to come back, withdraw it and start a business back in Australia. Now it was about 75 grand that was there. Unfortunately, that was linked in with MT Gox and they lost all their money and all that sort of stuff. So I had nothing. And it actually wasn't back until I came back to the UK that everything mindset wise switched. Like, again, working as the stripper, I was still promised the world. I was told all this stuff was going to happen, going to make so much money. I think I did like 3 shows. Yeah. I made about 300 quid that whole time. I then worked, I got a job working with the military.
Was that down to maybe you weren't a very good stripper?
I mean, there's probably that as well, mate. We walked past one of the shops, one of the places one night. There was a bucks party going on, a stag do, and they saw us, and I was like, I gave a lap dance to the buck. It was the strangest thing in the world, but I did it just for an extra 150 quid.
We're signing you up.
That's how do I do this? But yeah, it was just, this guy promised me saying, yeah, we're one of the biggest things in Cornwall, and it wasn't it. So I missed out on a lot, but then what ended up paying for things was working for the military as a defense contractor.
But before we move on to the military, I just have to touch on that. I was thinking a stripper in London.
No, it was
in Cornwall. I don't know the demand. Wow, man, that's. I
mean, there are a lot of Hindus. But just. Dude,
I don't know why. When you were saying that, I was thinking of like Piccadilly, the Hippodrome, like Magic Mike.
Well, this is the thing. Okay, so actually, I ended up being. It was a sexy circus. Magic Mike makes Cirque du Soleil called Forbidden Nights. So we ended up doing that for 5 years here, and it was actually very successful. But it wasn't that tacky stripping. I'll jump to that anyway. But working with the military as a contractor was cool. I was able to like go do some certain exercises. We went to Germany. I got to see so much of the UK, but also see what else we did. But I actually had a phone call from what do you call them? Like a modeling agency.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you want to make something of yourself, you've got to move to London. So I was like, okay, I'll come to London. I came up, paid 600 quid for a photo shoot, which ended up being a scam. And lost 600 quid. And those photos were they were average, but they got me the job with Forbidden Nights.
Right.
Now, originally with Forbidden, they came in, they said, come in, we want to take a look at you. And when I got in there, it was great. I loved the show. The energy that was behind it was incredible. And it was a business that they'd been around for about a year, but it was still so fresh. And they only had a Saturday night show. And I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. I want to be a part of this. And they brought me up on stage at the end of the night. And I was like, ladies, it's his birthday. Who thinks he should strip? So I was like, oh shit, okay. So I got on stage, did that. Then I was told to lead the girls upstairs to get their photos done. And I ended up grinding on some girl and I got stripperish. Like I'm talking tacky stripper.
Oh no.
And did the photos, had a good night and all that sort of stuff. And then the following day I got a phone call from the guy running it, Billy. And he was like, sorry mate, we just can't afford to take you on. We can't afford to take it. And I said to him, I'm like, dude, don't pay me. I don't care. I love what you have and I really want to be a part of this. I will work for free. I don't care. I just want to be here. And he's like, okay, let me call you back. And he called me back about 20 minutes later and it was like, I'll give you 50 quid a week. 50 quid a show. And he brought me on. And from that day, my mindset switched. Like I got a job as a trainer out in New Barnet. I managed to get a house, and the lady wanted the deposit plus the rent. I haggled, and I was like, can I look after your garden, not pay the deposit and do that? So she brought me in. And then I started getting into, the first book I read was Asking It's Given by Esther Hicks. And you could look at it as you want, whether it's religious or whether it's spirituality, but it was talking about the power of affirmations, the power of thought, and how we have complete control over what the thoughts you put out, what you get back. So it was things like that. I started doing my affirmations every single day, and I worked my ass off with Forbidden because I was like, I want to prove what I can do.
And how old were you now at this point?
I was about 22, 23. So
we're sort of moving on a couple of years apart.
Yeah.
So getting that.
I moved here in 2013. End of 2013 is when I first went traveling, did all that stuff. I went home, started 2014, and then I came back in July 2014. And then I ended up moving to London. I think it was August, September 2014.
And when did the sort of physique side of it come in? Like when did that sort of start to take part?
It had always been something there. I'd always been a big boy playing rugby. I'd always been training back in Australia. I always had an idea of what I was doing, that I just enjoyed that sort of life. And then once I started being with Forbidden, like I had my shirt off all the time, so you've got to be in shape. I was working in a gym, you had got to be in shape. One of the guys actually working at the gym said, you have a great physique, you should try bodybuilding. So that was my first ever competition as well. So it all kind of blended into one, but it was the energy that I was putting out. Because of everything I was talking about was, I'm going to be a success. I'm going to make sure I'm going to pull through all of this. I've got nothing to my name. I don't know how I lived, if I'm honest. Like I was paying 500 quid a month rent to the gym. I was paying 400 quid a month to to rent. I was prepping for a bodybuilding show. I was only getting paid 50 quid a week from Forbidden. And I had only 1 or 2 clients in the gym because people didn't want to come near me, because living in Barnet, everyone's quite like the home life sort of people. I look like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
They all think I'm going to smash them in the gym. So I don't know how I made money. I can't remember how I lived.
Yeah.
But I did. And that was just, I did anything and everything I had to make sure I could survive.
So how did you, when you started making this transition, because you're in great shape, I think anyone who's in great shape, it speaks a lot about them. If you see someone in great shape, you can instantly say discipline, routine, good diet. You can almost make a bit of a quick judgment. I think fitness only plays well in a very strong mindset. However, caveat is that being into fitness can also bring an element of selfishness to it. And this is something that I want to ask you about, is that when you're heavily involved in fitness, the dieting, the prepping, I've met people like it. They go very in their zone. It can be quite a lonely little road where they actually end up blocking a lot of people out because it's all about that moment in the gym. And that can eventually be quite unhealthy. How have you seen both sides? Where are you now? Is there the balance?
Funny enough.
Body dysmorphia, so much to it, right?
Well, funny enough, this has actually led to one of the biggest decisions of my life. Really. But it is. I've been selfish. The past 10 years of my life, I have pushed out so much. Pushed out, not going to events, not done certain things. Pushed away. I said, my wife, there's so many things she wanted to do and I didn't do it. There were so many moments that I wasn't there and I was so focused on everything I was doing. Again, birthday parties for some of my friends, even the boys at Forbidden, I was pushing away. It was because I was so focused on what I was doing. Now, I think I got so focused on it because I was winning. I was placing first, and I did 11 before I turned pro with the IFBB. I'd run 11 shows, placed first in 8 and second in 3. So I was on top of the world, and I was like, I'm so good at this. This is what I'm doing. So nothing mattered besides that. And at the detriment of a lot of things in my life, I've lost a lot, and it's heartbreaking, especially recently. So because of that, there's a few people that they've basically hung up the trunks, and to that sort of thing of, okay, look, I've missed out on life. I want to save this. I want to do that. Like, what's it worth? And I actually had a phone call with a mate last night, and I was like, I just want to know your experience of what brought you to this. And look, the one thing that he said to me that really, really stuck out is he goes, what's your life worth? Is it really worth a medal?
Yeah.
Is it really worth standing on stage for 20 minutes being judged by people you don't know? And like, look, I used to joke about that, going, I'm get ready to be judged by people I don't know. But now looking at it, yes, I enjoy being on stage, but I enjoyed being first and second. I enjoyed all that sort of stuff. Now I've got a lat injury, which happened 2 years ago from wakeboarding. And unfortunately that's changed how my physique looks. And knowing how it is now, like on stage, I can't place first or second anymore. I can't do that because everyone in the pro league is so symmetrical. Everyone looks good. And I just can't get that anymore. And again, with recent events that have happened in my life, I've lost so much. And it's really, really left me thinking quite deeply that I'm hanging up the shorts to compete. I don't want to compete anymore because I've lost so much. And there are things that I can't take back, things that I can't get back. Because of that. Like, don't worry, there are other situations around that, but the competing is the one thing that has, as much as been good for my life, has also been the downfall of a lot of big things.
I think we get so sucked into what we want, and we, like you say, you've missed out on opportunities. I've been there before, mate. Like I don't know what year it was. It was like 2018.
Yeah.
I was ripped to shreds. It was about 2018. Yeah. I was ripped to shreds. I went on this diet plan, took out a PT from a guy who won loads of competitions down my area. He was in great shape. And without even realizing, I become someone I didn't even recognize. But you couldn't tell me that. You couldn't tell me I'd become this person. I didn't want to eat anything other than I didn't want to walk too much. You know, if my wife and, you know, the family wanted to go out and do something, I'd literally say, no, I can't. It doesn't fit in with my life. And I look back now and I think honestly, I think you selfish twat. Like, who honestly cares? And you know, the only time I was happy when I was that shredded and in such a good physique, the only time I was happy was the hour in the gym. Outside, I wasn't happy with the diet. I was miserable, low on calories. And I look at it like this: is what have you got to show for it? Look at Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be walking around like him.
Yeah.
Like, I think we get so lost. And isn't it funny? Let's talk about this. Validation. How much at the heart was it for what other people will think of you to make you feel good about how you look?
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of that, isn't there?
100%. And for a lot of people, the vanity is there. Like, when I first started, yeah, I loved it, especially because of Forbidden. Like, I was standing on stage, I was shredded, I was the biggest guy. The photos, it was always a good laugh to look at how everyone else looked, and then you compare it next to me. It was always good. But there was a point where I started kind of just going, I just enjoy the structure behind it. Now, even saying I'm stopping competing, yes, I'll still bodybuild, I'll still be in the gym, I'll still be not dieting to that extreme, I'll still be kind of keeping within ranges, but I'll be enjoying my life a lot more. But the validation side of things, again, started, well, when I first got sponsored by Aesthetics Era back in 2016, I think it was, I got a manager, and he'd basically taken me on because he was like, cool, I can see something happening with you. And he goes, we're going to blow you up on social media. He goes, you've got a great physique, you got this, let's get this happening. So basically we started going through these processes, and he was like, if you want to get, this is how all these big guys are getting out on Instagram. Now, these guys had already been doing it for a while. Paid about $2,500 to a bloke in India, and he goes, I'm going to make you a viral profile. Made that profile, and he was putting on videos there which were getting 200,000-300,000 likes, everything. I was like, this is working. Then he put a photo of me, and you get 10 or 12. And he goes, the idea is to integrate you into this and remove all the photos, and this will happen. Then you have the big profile, people know who you are, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, great. And then I actually ended up losing my manager and a sponsorship because they knew that I was stripping. Again, it's still stripping, but it's not to that sort of extent, which I found quite ironic because one of the manager of the actual thing was sleeping with one of the girls on the team who was a stripper anyway, but she stayed, I didn't. Anyway, so I lost that, and I was just dumped with this page which had 125,000 followers and no traction, no nothing. And I was like, what the hell do I do with this? Then I found someone else that was like, oh, that's right, just use this system and you'll get followers coming through, this will happen and this can start going on. And I was like, it was that validation that I was still trying to keep ahead, going, I'm going to be an influencer. Like, this is what you've got to do, the shit you got to go through. And it ended up just breaking the bank, but breaking me because I was sitting there trying to chase likes from people that really don't give two shits about me. And if all honestly, I'm 2 seconds of their life, not even, and it's a double tap. That's all it is. Like, I lost, again, so much for it. As good as bodybuilding's been and competing and making sure I got a good physique, it's still, I've sacrificed so much and lost so much of my life.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny, right? I heard this the other day, said it to Paul. When you post, you get a certain amount of likes, but your views on your stories will always be so much more, which is ironic because in a way that's saying not a lot of people are liking, but a lot of people are watching.
Yeah.
And therefore, how many people of those who are watching really want to support you? Because for those who really want to support you, and perhaps that's why for me, anytime I post on social media, I don't tag people anymore. So when I post now, I had a bigger account before which I lost, and I spent so much time building this account up to what I got it to, and I lost it and never got it back. And I used to tag people all the time, and in the end, some of them were like, "You stop tagging me," you know. Other people wouldn't say anything, and now I just post because I put something out that I believe in, that I feel, and if I get one like, I don't care. I never check. I never check the likes because it's about me and the value and what I've now learned to try and give back. And that's why we do these podcasts, because it's about trying to throw a bit of reality on it. And what's been your biggest downfall? Like, where have you been low? Like, where you've thought, you know, just where you've taken yourself and you thought, what the fuck is going on? I need to sort myself out.
I've had a few of those moments. Well, again, it's been recently. I've been through a few things in life which have taken a lot of internalization. Just be like, I really need to sort my things out. But then you go through those phases of looking at everything from your perspective and going, what have I done? Like, what's been done to me? And approaching the situation from what's been done to me to then looking at it from other people's situations and going, okay, I really need to work through this and understand that's what they feel, that's how they are, and that's where they are. And it's a lot of internal work to actually be able to step out and be able to acknowledge that of other people, because you go through dark moments going through that, because there are things that you haven't acknowledged in yourself that you have to then work through. Like, I've done ayahuasca and all these sorts of things because there are moments where I want to be able to find in myself those moments and those ways to work through it. But that's obviously a most recent one. But other moments with things like social media and all that, when I realized that I was chasing the likes, wasn't getting them, and kind of sitting there looking at my phone going, why is things changing? Like, one day you go from 3,000-4,000 to 200. You're like, what's changing? And you then it took me months. Like, now as an online coach, I don't care. Like, I look at my posts now, they're getting 100-200 likes, but my client base is through the roof.
Yeah.
And like you said, you got people liking, but they're watching. So many of my clients haven't even liked my stuff, but they're working with me as a coach. So like you said, you're putting out information to be able to help people and all that. Whether people like it or not, you don't care. The main thing is you're able to then really still help people, and people still want to come to you, even if you don't know if they're watching or not.
Do you know what I truly believe at the moment? One of the biggest movements on social media is being transparent, authentic, open, and actually exposing some of your wounds.
Yeah.
I think if you can relate to people by saying, do you know what, I'm not all right, this has affected me, I was trying to do this didn't work. You know, I've got a bit of a thing at the moment where on Monday, oh my God, I rang Paul straight and I was on the phone to you. I was on the phone to Paul. Monday morning, I lose 2 deals. It's the equivalent, it was like the equivalent of $9,500.
Yeah.
Monday morning, I needed that to go through.
Yeah.
You know, we all need to make income. We all need our businesses to work. But one of the first things I did was I do lives. I said, today is not a good day. This has not worked for me. You know, I had my self-pity, I had my wallow, I sat there, but you know, I've learned that it's not all about me. It's just about getting on with it. You know, I just think it's about being open, being transparent, and trying to give back in a way of, if it's a bad day for you, about not smiling and putting on another layer. I mean, Christ, how many layers have we put on in terms of an exterior, a fake persona? I mean, I know people now that are still wearing away at the layers. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, look, as we all hear it, social media is everyone's highlight reel. This is the thing, no one is comfortable to open up to be who they are. And that's one thing I've started doing a lot more, because you are your own brand and people buy you. Now, obviously, look, it's not always about people buying you, but you want people to know the real you. And again, that's what I'm trying to live by these days, to make sure if I do have something on my story, or like you'll see days if I'm going through some darkness or whatever it may be, is there may be a day or two where I don't post, just because it's not that I don't want to tell people that, it's just I've got my own internal things to work through. But to be as transparent as possible with everyone on there as often as possible. Look, I had a bit of a bad day struggling with this what is like. I've been recently diagnosed with ADHD. Like that was start of this year, and that's been a whole new process for me to deal with and learn and understand. Like I've obviously had it all my life, but I didn't notice until COVID. So I've always had strategies to deal with it. And then as COVID happened, we lived in a house of 17 people during COVID. It was great because we had people around us, but there was so many things that people were saying to me that I was doing that I had no acknowledgement of it. Like walking away in a conversation, just picking up my phone and start playing on it, doing these things. And it wasn't until I got the diagnosis that it was like, okay, that all makes sense. But then I've got to relearn who I am, relearn the processes of myself and strategies, because it still puts me in the darkness. But this is where I'm so transparent with my clients. They will know everything going on. If I can't message them, I can't respond, I can't do check-ins. Guys, this is what's happening with me at the moment, just so you know, make sure you're okay. I want to make people completely aware, and sometimes I can overshare. Definitely I can overshare sometimes, but it's just I feel people need to know certain things about me so they don't get the wrong opinion. But again, that can obviously play good and bad.
You have to be very careful on who you share information with. I learned very early on, and I've learned from people who've been there and been burnt. I've been burnt myself. You categorize who you share things with. You be picky on who you trust, who you give information, who you tell your darkest secrets to, because one day someone will leverage it against you, and that is a dangerous thing.
100%.
Let me ask you, in a few words, what does social media mean to you now?
If I didn't need it for work, I wouldn't have it. Honestly, it's probably more than a few words. Look, social media is good for what I need for work to bring me through. But if I'm honest, I could happily, if I had living off investments, I'd be living in Thailand and doing absolutely, just living my life nice and chilled and not having to worry about a thing. Because social media can have its benefits, good levels of education. They can really help bring the news, like good news, positive stuff, which is what you want to see. But again, there's also so much negativity on there. There's always so many things where you'll compare yourself to what's going on, and comparison is probably one of the worst things in the world. I've had to coach so many of my clients through, stop comparing yourself to this guy. Yes, you may start at the same time, but your life is so much different to what he's going through. You've had this happen, he's had this happen. There are so many different things. Like if people can stop, or at least start to step back and understand that it's literally a highlight reel, and that their life is so different, their life story is so different, their daily experience is so different to what you do, then people will may start to feel a bit more comfortable with things. But it does. At the moment, I still think social media has more negative than positive.
Comparison literally is a killer, quite literally a killer, and it affects so many people. So I think the more reality and transparency that we can give as content creators, I think benefits people coming into this new world of social media, because it can be really toxic.
100%.
Ash, as we sort of come to a close, mate, I absolutely love this. What would be your final tip or tips, to someone watching this thinking, I know that I need to be the creator, not the consumer. I need to manage my social media better. I need to take in real life. We've all been there. Someone's talking to us. We don't even hear what they're saying because we're just on our phones. What would your advice be to someone who's on socials now but needs to get control of it?
Be present. That's the biggest thing that I've learned. There's a lot of times, whether it's through social media or just in day-to-day life, where I haven't been present. And again, that comes from my bodybuilding, is because I'm so focused on, I have to train at this time, I have to do this meal, I can't go out here, I can't do this exercise, whatever it was, is I lost so many moments of being present. And a lot of those, you'll never get those moments back. You can't recreate that moment because I'll never have the same experience.
Yeah.
So you've got to be present in that moment.
Yeah. And time is the most precious thing, which we always go on about. So
exactly.
Ash, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people reach out and get hold of you, my man?
So you got me on social media, Ash Edelman, IFBB Pro, ASHEDELMAN, IFBB Pro. I've got to spell it because no one can do it.
Faye will do an amazing thing. Pop up on about here.
Mate, exactly. And then, that's basically the main place I am, really, with that. So.
Awesome. Mate, it's been a pleasure. And everyone who's watched, thank you so much. And we'll see you all very soon.
Thank you, guys.